So it's 6 o'clock for us actually, but it's 7 a.m. for our guest, Maxine Lu. And so we are super grateful to her for starting with us this early in the morning, her time. And this is an exciting presentation that we've been waiting for quite a while, really looking forward to. I'm Deirdre Mendez. I'm the director of the Center for Global Business. And it is such a pleasure to have Maxine with us today. She's currently the Director of Medical Affairs and Education for Greater China at Medela. She started her career in telecommunications and moved to healthcare and medical devices later, and she spent 15 years in those industries. She has diverse roles in global Fortune 500 companies in China, Japan, the US, and Europe. That is a diverse industries, diverse geographies, truly a huge amount of global experience. She has extensive experience in management, talent development, and women's leadership initiatives in diverse countries. So I'm delighted to welcome our McCombs MBA graduate, Maxine Lu. Maxine, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Dr. Mendez. Thank you for having me. It's great honors and humble to be here today and share some of my experience after I graduated from McCombs. So nice to meet you all today.
So Maxine, we are looking forward to hearing all the things that you have to share with us. And in particular, I would like to begin with a couple of questions, and then towards the end, we'll take questions from the group. Will that work for you?
Yes, please.
All right. So I'm going to manage the slides here, which means that I need to share my screen. And I'm going to ask, I'm going to need permission to do that from our host. Jordana, can you make that happen? Thank you.
Also, I want to thank you for the student who has sent us questions doing when you register. So I think we captured some of the question.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the reasons it's been such a pleasure working with you has been that you've been so responsive to our questions and to the questions that were sent before the presentation. So I think everyone's going to be thrilled with your presentation. So let's go ahead and start. And my first question is, can you tell us a little bit about your personal journey?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you so much. So I think for my personal journey, like you said before, I have graduated from McCombs for 15 years. And before that, I have almost 7 years working experience in telecom industry. So I think what McCombs helps me a lot is most of people, when they want to take an MBA, is able to have chance to go to another industry. So I think that's one highlight point I want to point out. After I graduated from McCombs, I transferred from telecom industry to healthcare industries. And also after graduate, I think one thing I learned from McCombs professor, I'm sorry, I forgot which professor said that in our class. He said that one of the good things about learning an MBA or being in a business school is really about learning a framework when you are in the business environment. Because in MBA, you do marketing, you do operation. If you, someone in the MBA, you do finance. I think accounting is still the number one in McCombs. So all those courses, some you like, some you don't like. However, that a diverse course did help me to build a framework to guide me through my working experience, my journey after I graduated from McCombs. So after McCombs, I joined Johnson & Johnson, and then that is, I think, number one, almost have 100 years when I joined Johnson & Johnson. They have consumers, they have healthcare, and they also have pharmaceutical. And then I joined Medtronic. I don't know whether you know that, but they're the number one medical device company around the world. And now I have joined a European family-owned business, which yesterday we just celebrate our 60 years anniversary as a family-owned business. Quite amazing. So all those three companies served me really well for my personal journey. So I think there's one slide, maybe Dr. Mendes can pull out for my slide 1, Mark 1. I think this picture actually captures some of my journey in a more visual way.
Okay, and I'm going to one moment.
Take your time.
So is this the slide you're referring to? I want to make sure. Okay.
Yes. So what I want to say, summarize my journey is like always, like never before. For the people who like cars, you may pick up, this is one of the actually a car model called Saturn. That's what I learned from them, from their advertising. I really like this. My journey has been really amazing. It's always been great. And then it changed once a while. So that's usually I put it as my leadership saying. And in the picture, you can see, you can recognize the sea of, usually I call sea of orange. My husband and I are both McCombs graduates. So this is a picture when I watch footballs. And you see there's another pictures I show here. The one with a big light on the top is actually when I was in an interim role for a group head of business unit when I was in Manila. In that picture, I actually present to the president and also the CEO of Medtronic. The reason for that, because I have a chance to do an interim role between leadership change. So I was so nervous, but our HR director tell me that I cannot tell you are nervous. You are okay. So I think it's really not, it was my third month as a director for business unit, being an interim. So another several picture you can see here, actually, I have a several talks and leadership sharing in Fudan University, which also one of the top university in China. So I think my international experience and multinational company experience did help me to not just have exposure to the company or industry level, but also in the education level. I think also served me well that I am able to have chance to speak with Dr. Mendes and you all to share some of my experience. So I hope that capture some part of my personal journeys. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, that is an amazing journey, and how exciting to get to see all these photos. Actually, I'm not sure I have so many photos of my journey, and that's a great point for people to make sure you capture your journey as best you can as you are beginning it. Another thing that you mentioned, and really that speaks to this slide as well. You talked, when we talked before, you talked about the importance of building a story. And so how did you build your story, and how do people go about doing that?
Okay, thank you. So I think that the next slide was served pretty well. And this slide has been shared with, the formatting is not that well sharing in this format. But anyway, I think this showcase from 1995 to 2021, my journey. So I share with this slide in many of our talks. It's not the first time. However, I think the importance about building your story is really building your self-awareness and also building your confidence levels. Because I think everyone is unique. Everyone there have their stories. And you probably know that you have a chance to do elevator speech when you meet someone important in the company you never meet before. For example, think about if you have chance to meet the CEO or the president of United States, Greater China, and what are you going to talk with him or her in the elevator? You have to have a story, right? You are not going to go through your resume, but what kind of story you can quickly pick up for 2 minutes and people remember you. So I started this exercise since I would say 5 or I don't know, should be 7 or 8 years old, to start to kind of build my story. Not everyone is a big story, but it's the story that I think I can share with others and people would kind of appreciate and curious. So the the other story on the top is a story about my exposure in the school environment or training environment, which I do a lot of trainings when even in the company. But what I capture here is I study my college in the Guangdong University. My major is taxation. So people, when I talk about it, people say, what? You're doing taxation right now, you're doing healthcare. What happened during all those times why do you have this transformation? So I think that would give you an example about create conversation and create curiosity. And of course, McCombs is the first school I study abroad. And then I really fortunate that in one of my previous company, I was trained in the Disneyland University to really learn how to build an extraordinary customer experience. If you ever been to the Disneyland, I think you know how they create and how they formulate their customer experience to make you so happy and going back to Disneyland again and again. So that's one of the training that I remember the most. And also for Fudan University, is my first time as a corporate mentor. So I mentor their student, I give lectures, and I also join the women leadership talks, which some of the picture you saw before. And then after I joined Manila, I have a chance to be part of the global leadership team and join an IMD training program in Switzerland. So that is a group picture when I was, the whole leadership team from Manila and executive level as well, together training at the same time. It's totally different, how can I say, totally different colleagues versus when I do the similar program when I'm in the business school. And another way I build my story is many first time when I have a new position or a new challenge in an industry or in a company. So you can see I work for a Chinese company, China Unicom is my first job. And then I joined, before McCombs, I have worked in a Japanese company, it's my first international job. And then I joined my first medical company, Johnson & Johnson, really big jump for me to another industry, learning all the clinical papers and also interact with healthcare professionals. So I started as a professional education and I do government partnership. And then after I joined Medtronic, I take many roles. So some of the questions usually come when I talk with some of the students or colleagues or whoever want to learn the leadership team, or have a promotion. And they will ask Maxine, where's the opportunity? I say, there's an opportunity inside the company and outside the company. If you stay long enough and work at your best and looking for the opportunity, you always have chance to taking on different jobs. So like in Medtronic, I work in business operation, B2C marketing, and also business director, and also have a chance to do interim and also do a mini BD project, have a minority investment from corporate to China. So, and also do a new product launch in Hong Kong. So really, really interesting environment while working there for almost 8 years, more than 8 years. And then recently when I joined Medila, is my story become, since I have been working in the US-based company like Johnson & Johnson, Medtronic for quite a long time. So why not I have a chance to work in a European company, which is another new area for me. And it's a family-owned business, not a public company that have to worry. So they are ideas about P&L, profit and loss, and balance sheet that's quite different from the US company. So even I just joined this company for 2.5 years, I already take a different role. So I start as a BD director, which working with a leadership level to do 5-year strategy in China and present to our board member for this company. And also now I serve as a medical affair and education director. So I think this is some of my story is many of my first time that I remember and I want to remember, and which I think it would be kind of my sharing with you. Hope that maybe probably you can see everyone is possible to have their career develop no matter you're in the company or outside the company. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I love that answer. I love the idea that you've been thinking about that since you were 8 years old. That's pretty remarkable, but really, I think, and I particularly when it comes to working with students, I often find that students feel that they have no relevant experience. when in fact, many of the things that they've done, which may have nothing at all to do with business, are quite relevant for one reason or another. So I really appreciate your making that point. So another question that I had for you is, you were talking about the importance of understanding your role in the company. And that can be really challenging when you first enter a company, or when you're a young person who isn't so familiar with all the multitude of aspects associated with a company. So how should young leaders learn about, go about understanding their own roles within the strategy of a company?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. I still consider myself as a young leader, to be honest. No matter when you take a new role or in a new company, you're always a young leader. So there's one book. I'm not promoting that book, but that's the book that I use a lot. The First 90 Days. The First 90 Days, really nice book, a tool book that you for all the leaders, or even me as a leader, when I take a new role, I would kind of have a checklist on that book, and that book I recommend. So you just pick the one that you want. But for a young leader, I just have one thing. I think you can have a lot of experience sharings and also tips from your mentors or from your managers, etc. But recently, I think the recent 2 years, I found out there's one thing that from my experience that helped me a lot when I'm positioning myself and learning a strategy in a company. And I share this with my recent team because this year I take a new role and I have 2 teams, and customer service and medical affairs. And they are in different ages. They have the 90s, they are the 80s, they are the 70s. So really diverse. And when we as a team together to really think about our positioning, since we are joining as a new team, how we position ourselves in the company, my answer to them is, I would say, it's a simple and it's not simple. The simple is, I would say, is the language. Some people may know a culture in China. If you want to unite a big country, language is the first things you need to unify it. And then whenever, I think there's a lot of presentation when the director talks, right? The president talks, but ask yourself how many slides or how many talks you can remember. If you listen to them every quarter, it's very difficult, right? So just think about, if you really want to understand the strategy, really listening to the president's presentation, really listen, I mean, really listening. And then pick several slides that you remember the most and pick the same language, exactly what he or she say. I mean, exactly. So people, when they listen, they will listen to other words, right? So for example, if Maxine say cats, you may hear, okay, cats. But I think dog also replace cats, right? So mine remember is dog, but no, actually she say cats. So when you present your projects to the president, remember, you say that this is about cats, even though in the mind you remember dogs. So I hope that this gives you a really simple answer, saying that people use different language to describe company strategy. But remember, when the president or director, when they showcase their strategy, all the language they use, they think that a lot. So make sure that you use the exactly same language, same word, and then when you present your projects and how's that related to the strategy of the company, that usually helps a lot to communicate yourself and tell the leadership team you understand their strategy, and they will tell you whether what you're doing really helped the strategy. Don't use too many language to describe the company's strategy, or even though your understanding may be correct, but language did help on the communication. And of course, when you, that's the first part on the communication part. And I think listening to this presentation is critical. Pick some of the slides. And I remember this conversation I have with my senior customer service manager just recently. And I told him that I pick up, even though there's a 20 slide on our sales director's presentation, I remember there's 2 slides so critical. I think it captured most of his strategy. And he told me that, Maxine, you're exactly right. That slide captured everything, because previously this customer service team is in sales team. So he know that slide, the whole team spent a lot of time to build that. So I think that it's important that you find out what is the core presentation in those slides and remember that and use that as a tool to communicate and positioning yourself in the company. So I think that's some of my tips. I hope that helps. It may work for you or it may not. Feel free to take it or leave it.
Thank you. I love that insight, especially because I've never heard it before. I've never heard anyone else make that point, but I think it's really extremely insightful. So thank you very much for that. I'm just looking at your slides beforehand. I felt like we were going to get a lot of value that we hadn't been seeing before, and we absolutely are. So thank you very much. So my next question for you is about working with global leaders. So intercultural leadership is one of my favorite topics. And how do you, speaking as an expert on, as someone who does this, how do you understand the culture of all of the people present, and how do you make sure that you are not only respecting their culture and helping them to meet their goals, but also be sure that you are meeting your own and advancing your own agenda?
Thank you so much. So I think, Dr. Mendes, you can pull out my slide 4.1. I think that's the slide probably capture my practice in 5 different country. Yes, 4.1. Yeah.
This is the one you made before, right? About
the language. Yes, because I use McCombs and McCombs color. I make it a little bit. When I joined Madila's main color is orange. So I think I remember in the first 2 weeks when we have the town hall meeting with the employee, I introduce myself. I say I start my MBA in Orange with UT Austin, and then now I am in Manila with the Orange as well. So what a coincidence! So this serves me well as a language.
Well, on behalf of McCombs and of the University of Texas, we're very glad to have had the right color for your career.
Yes. Okay. So this is just my personal experience. And I know there's one student asked me about this culture cluster. So I think for whoever want to know more about the cultures and culture cluster, I highly recommend you read the Globe studies because I think they capture a lot of different cultures and aspects. And I remember for this study, they've done quite extensive research. I will not go into the details, and because I'm not the expert for this study, I just happened to read this study that I think it says really well. So what I'm going to share with you is the power of diverse culture cluster and how that served me well, and give you 4 different examples to help you understand my my journey a little bit. So I think I start as a China-owned company called China Unicom. The company was established to break the monopoly for the telecom industry in China, because previously there's only one telecom in China is the government-owned. There's really monopoly, but then it opened the door. So right now we probably have 4 national telecom company and network serve the whole countries, and China Unicom is one of them. One thing I really learned from them is the China company, if they want to execute something, they would do it all employees. So since we are the new entry into the industry, so one year we have a strategy that everyone is a sales. Just thinking about that, everyone, you have a sales target, no matter you are customer service or you are in the sales team, or even you are in the finance team, you are responsible for having a new account registered for our telecom. They provide different package. So I call it all in sales experience. I don't know whether they have that in other countries, but that is the experience I remember that really speak well on one of aspect of China culture. If you want to do something, it will happen, and with everybody in that happen. So just think about the 2008 Olympic game from China. So you can see the magnitude of that game, and it did need a lot of people to make that happen. So that and in that company, I experienced first merge and acquisition, which in some point I need to kind of fire someone in my company. So I was really young at that age as a supervisor. So that is a personal experience. So right now, I think it's a really tough conversation, but I know what the reason why people, when two companies merge, there's some organization adjust happen. So even it happens in my later company later on, and I used to it. And then I work for a Japanese company called NEC. Also in the telecom industry, they serve customers in Guangzhou, which is my hometown as well. So one thing I pick up for them, and I think everyone know the people from Japan are working in a Japanese company, they work really hard. I mean, really, really hard. And one thing I want to share, two things I share with you to showcase how hard they work. First, my manager from Japan, he told me that in the company, they asked them to learn everyone at least one master in one Chinese song. And so that when you have a customer, visit a customer in China, if you have a chance to go to karaoke, you have to sing a Chinese song to show your respect to the culture. So think about, you need to learn the song in Chinese, even though Japanese and Chinese is quite similar. So they really show their respect and work really hard to improve themselves and to serve the customers. And another thing I've learned from the Japanese company, which also still serve me right now really well, is how to do invoicing reporting for reimbursement for your expense. Whenever you come into a company, you reimburse your expense, right? You need to put in invoice. So Japanese company have really clear, and how do you put the invoice? How do you do that? So I trained really well on that. So after I enter other company, my finance team always say that we don't have to worry about Maxine's invoice. She know how should put the order, how to make it clear to us. So it's easy for. So think about that. That served me well, what I learned from the Japanese company. And then after I worked for Johnson & Johnson, and for US company, like Johnson & Johnson and Medtronic is a US-based company, and I've been there long enough, experienced their organization changes and CEO changes, or even remove the office. So I would say it's really a matrix organization. So you probably have two report lines. You either report to the Greater China for me, and also you also report to the US as a global. So you have two lines, sometimes solid line, sometimes dotted line, direct or indirect reports. So you actually have multiple bosses to working with. So it makes it quite a challenge for the communication. And I think that's the time when I start really become and understand how to work as a global leaders. So I hope that you have a chance to join those kind of company, really experience how you have different bosses from different time zone, and you working with the colleague from different area. And another thing I think from the US company and public company, and they have a really, really strong system to keep the organization going, especially for the company have 100 years or even 60 years history. So in China, we say that if you're working in this kind of company, you are like a needle in a machine. So if you go, they will replace another needle. So they are organized in a way that not really impacted by just one person. So still, they put a lot of effort to build high potential to keep. Because they want to keep the best. So I have a chance to get a lot of training, just like the Disneyland training I shared with you before. So if you have chance to working in those companies, I would say that you have, if you have good potential, you will be recognized and give a lot of training opportunities. So that's the US company. And then for the Switzerland company, which I call the European company, a family-owned business is not public. In a 60 years history, I think they are quite stable. So last year, everyone knows that we experienced pandemic. So based on my previous experience in US company, we chasing sales number every quarters, right? If you didn't hit the numbers, you are kind of ready to think about you have to go, no matter maybe in a year or two. But I think in a European company, they still are chasing the target. They are still have good demanding on really hitting the number. However, the flexibility, or I would say the threshold, would be better versus the US and public company. It's just my personal experience. If that's not the truth, please don't take it. And then they would see things in the long term, or make me feel the company thinking in the long term. So even we have a tough time, we are on the whole positions. So they would see in a longer term. So people would say, feel a little bit safer, I would say safer, my experience in a European family-owned business, because we think that they're looking in the long term. However, I think the profitability is really essential for family-owned business. So we are always looking at operation income. So I think not about like tracing the high growth, but really about making the profit. I think that's my experience for the Swiss or I would say European company. One of my big learning from my dealer, the company I work for, is I have chance to pitch to the board. The board contain all the people from outside. One of the board member actually is the family business owners, and they are from like they have legal experience, they have a consumer experience. So the question they ask is quite interesting, and it's a new experience for me. So because I'm the one that work with the leadership team in China to pitch that. So I think those are the things that I want to share. I think all this diverse culture cluster did help me. First, practice my English. I hope that I speak myself well today. And then really understand and really listening, because English is my second language. So when I interact with them, their language essence are so different. So continue to practice my listening skill, and I really listen and really think about what's the culture's difference, and then respect that. And third, I think what works across the board is really be confident about yourself for all the leaders or all the young graduates who is going to enter the workforce soon. Be confident about yourself, just re-listening and answer your question in a simple way and more direct way, because nowadays everyone is so busy. So don't complicate the questions, answer directly, have your input and have your insights. I think across the culture, everybody and leadership team will appreciate your inputs, and they will tell you yes or no for sure. So I hope that I think it takes a little bit longer to answer these questions, but I hope that you have some takeaway from what I just shared.
Thank you. I love the description that you made of these different business models across cultures, because I think many of the things you pointed to are things that we hear about for those countries.
Yes.
So my next question then, and this is my final one, because I think we're going to want to hear from people in the audience. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat. But my last question is, what is the quality that you would say is most needed by global leaders in the 21st century? And this question just got a lot harder because the pandemic has disrupted so many things and global events. But to the degree that you can point to anything in particular, can you give us some ideas?
Yes, thank you. So Dr. Mendes, maybe quickly go to the next slides, and then maybe, yes. I think, one point I'm missing, which I really would like to share with, also back to the last question about understand their working across clusters. Not this one, the next one, Dr. Mendes. Yes. Remember, laughter is an international language. So if you really want to work in an international environment, make sure that you have your smile, and also make sure you have your humors from your country. You don't have to really learn all the humor around the world. So I usually make a little bit joke and let them use Chinese joke and talk to my international colleague, and they love it. So this is one of the article from Harvard Business Review, which really talks about how a CEO use a sense of humor, one laugh at a time, to really rebuild a business, rebuild a company. And I hope that helped the reading may help you learn a little bit about, and whoever loves the humors. Okay, so then the next slides, I think that's the slides that, to answer this question, I may start with some don'ts. Then we go to the do's. And I think for the don'ts, this book is an inspiration from my previous boss, I would say. She has 18 years working experience as a business unit leaders. And when the last time I worked with her, she gave me this book. She said that, Maxine, remember, what got you here won't get you there. That's how I learned from my previously almost 20 years working as a business unit head. So I just want to, maybe people can take a few moments to take a look at these 20 don'ts. That's the 20 habits that hold you back from the top from this book. So maybe Dr. Mendes, I will take 30 seconds. People can read on the slides, okay?
I love this list.
Some people may find, I think for me on takeaway on this list, it's not, this is all wrong or not correct, or you should not do it all, but just be careful. I think some of them is because you have a really advantage or merit that at some point it become a disadvantage. So I think this is good tips for people who are excel on some point, and maybe if go too a little bit extreme would become a disadvantage. So I just hope that you keep this in your mind to help you to remind yourself a little bit. So don't take it as a, oh, I cannot do this, but just a little bit checklist. I found it's quite useful. And I will still
providing them. I'm sorry. Thank you for providing the source to us as well.
Yes. And the next one, that's the one that I want to share from next slide, is the one that I want to share a transferable skills. I think for this area of being a leader, I think it's important that you have, I think it's not a new saying, it's still old saying, cultivate your transferable skills and really pave your way if you have chance to move to job, position to position, or company to company. And this is my summary list for the moment to myself. I think it's important to communicate without borders. What I see the most is the younger generation. They now able to have chance to, through the internet or through traveling the board, to observe everything. So they are really good at different language. They are really good at different cultures. So if you are a new leader for this young generation or next generation leader, you really need to have, I think I really need to have a skill of communicate without border. So my English may not be perfect, but at least in the communication level, I should be smooth, and my listening skills should be really agile to do so. So I think even though we do a lot of typing or text messaging recent days, but however, those kind are still, like the language I say, you have to learn and adapt if you really a leader, because when you're leading a people or leading a business unit, if you have chance working globally, that is the skill set no matter what you have to have. So it's to communicate without borders. And then the second one, I would say, really driven by the big picture vision. I think nowadays people would easily find struggle about safety of the job and maybe lose a little bit confident about whether I'm safe or whether my skill set, my knowledge is still on the trend right now. Do I in the game or out of game, etc., etc. So I think that's why in the previous answer, I talk about really listening to the company's strategy. If you are able to understand the strategy and really find your positioning and pitch your projects and your ideas to the leadership team, and that would also help the business or even the profits, I think you will feel confident about staying in the company. And also, if you have a knowledge about the whole industry, really think about the whole industry in the big picture, and then you have chance to move across company, which I think is building a security for yourself and building a confidence driven by big picture. I think it served me really well, so that I can also use what I learn about the big picture and learn about the strategy to guide my team to make them feel safe and make them position themselves and focus their job on whatever the company needed the most. And the third one, which is my favorite, I would say not my favorite, one of my favorite one, because the word is really difficult to pronounce. Observe with the science of anthropology. I really like one of the TV program called Bones, if you like TV program, which is a US TV program. And the main character there is an anthropologist. So the reason I say the third skills that I recommend is really observe the science of anthropology is everybody first role is a human. So you know the Maslow needs a triangle, right? So even we serve an employee, I remember there's one student asked, is my leadership style change due to the pandemic? I would say yes and no, because for the leadership style, I think it's related highly on your personality. However, what pandemic changed me or remind me the most is first I have to treat my team member mostly as a human, because in when the pandemic come, the security of the job and how they work within the family. For example, if I found out that the school are more strict or a lot of things happening for the kids. So whoever have the kids in my team, I would tell them that, okay, it's okay that you may not able to come on time because the school may have new policy coming in because of some of the pandemic cases, etc. So I think we have to really observe people in science of anthropologies as a human, so that when they are with you, they are really focused on what you need them, and they are not bothering by other issues. So I think at the new area with the pandemic, it really requires a manager or leader to really understand people as a human, and also all different kinds of levels they need, so that they can be better. We can better work as a team. We can better work efficiently, and we can also able to deal with really diverse and also fast-paced environment, and working remotely or working in office. So those are the three things I want to share based on my experience. Works well as some of the character or quality for the 21st century leaders.
Thank you. So I think there were so many fascinating points there. And are we finished with the slides, or would you rather go back to the questions that came in before?
Either way is okay, Dr. Mendes. I follow your leads. New questions or the previous question is okay.
All right. Well, let's go to the chat and see. And we can always come back to those questions, but we have a lot of questions in the chat, I think. So let's take a look. Here's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Laughter and smiles being so universal, do you think in-person masked meetings or Zoom meetings are more beneficial for cross-cultural conversations? That's an interesting question, because I teach in the classroom with a mask on, and I never see my students' faces. So in Zoom meetings, I actually like seeing them in Zoom because I get to see their faces. So it says Zoom offers more nonverbal facial communication, whereas in person, you see more body language. Any comments on?
Yeah, I think for me, I think Zoom meeting is not the first kind happen because of the pandemic, right? Even before pandemic, we have this kind of Zoom meeting with international colleagues. So it's not a new thing. First, that's why but we have more this stage. So so I would try. What I try to do is just make it as feel like a face-to-face. So if people who joined in earlier today with us in the first 10 minutes, and I remember Deborah and I talk about cats and pets. So those are the conversations are quite universal, just like laughter. So make good use of that, say hello. So that's also the things I talk to my Chinese colleagues. So join 5 minutes earlier, say hello, relax yourself, talk about the families and lives, and make it a good start. So that's my tips.
All right, great. Thank you. And here's another one. What's your advice on getting a master's degree abroad as a good gateway to an international career after your bachelor's? Like getting a master's degree as a way to start out internationally after undergrad versus using it for a career change later on.
Oh, that's a really, this is a question that usually I got a lot from the college students, and even some of the colleagues who have been work and want to get an MBA. And they will ask me, Maxine, should I study in China or should I study abroad? And I say both are the good way. It depends on what you're looking for. To give you an example, if people from China ask me, Maxine, should I study abroad or should I have my MBA in China? And I would tell them, if you're looking for a network, a network that help you, either you build your business or you enter a new company in China, then I would recommend, if you already have working in China, then stay in China, because your family in China, your network in China, even you're looking for international company, they're headquartered in China. So that would help you really well once you graduate, right? Because your whole network is in China. That's the power of you study in China. But if you're willing to live certain time, 2 years, from your family, from your friends, and build a new friend, and really have experience to international environment, definitely study abroad, because I benefit for that a lot. And I spent 2 years full time. That, of course, my father told me there's a risk, right? Maxine, you have a risk. You have your job, and then you resign your job, and you never know whether you can have a job after your MBA. But I still didn't regret I take that opportunity. So I think both ways are good. So it just depends on really on what you want. And one advice for the students, even you may not like your parents, did talk with them. Sometimes they have their wisdom to tell you, to help you to make the decision.
Thank you. And as a parent, I especially appreciate that point.
Yes, because they know me the best. They saw me as my growth. So even though they may not say it right, but I think their advice is really important to help me to think about myself. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Here's another one. Have you ever found yourself in an ambiguous situation where you weren't sure what the appropriate course of action was in terms of the other country's cultural values? And how do you handle it?
This happens usually at the first time when I interact with new colleagues. For example, I remember when I'm in the BD project at Medtronic, it's the first minority investment. I never done this before. And I need to work with the global legal team because they need to do due diligence, and also working with the global BD teams, and even the CEO's office, because we need to pitch the CEO. I think there's a quite dynamic situation which I never experienced this before. So at that point, I even question myself, am I able to get this investment and make this happen? Because, you know, in a multinational company, it's really difficult to have corporate invest in certain region, even though it's big amount or small amount. So I think during this kind of ambiguity in new situation for us, I think one of the tactics I have is really build core team. I mean, a tiger team with you to help you to bridge the communication. I have knowledge of business, but I don't have the knowledge of legal, right? So I really have a China legal, my partner in my core team. And when I go with the global legal team, I would bring he or her with me. I talk in the business side, and he or she would talk in the legal side, and with the corporate. And then after the conversation, we will work together, and we keep it as a common goal, because we always want investment in China, right? So we are, and also I respect their language. A lot of language they are talking about, to be honest, even right now, I don't understand why, but it is what it is. That's why I remember when you talk with the international environment, if you cannot understand, don't think you are stupid, just think that it is what it is, just let it go. So that's the things that I think for the ambiguous situation, I think it's important to have a core team and your partner with you, so that to help you fill the gap of your knowledge, so that you are not the only one to doing that. So you are not all in every places. You have someone to help you to do that. So I think for the result is good. We set a new record. We got the BD investment in 9 months approved. So
Okay. So results speak for the method then. Thank you.
yes, yes.
Here's
And
one.
my core team is happy. Sorry, my core team is really happy. It's not just Maxine's happy. Everyone's happy.
Sure. Here's a question that I also had from your list of 20 sort of don'ts for your career. In terms of adding too much value as a negative, why is that a negative? Can you describe that and so maybe how you've seen that in your own career?
Yes, I think that's one of the things I watch out for myself as well. I would admit. People, my team or people who work as me as a really creative person, you can tell by the way I talk, right? I react really fast. So my idea came all the way. So if the people have read a lot of creativity and talk really fast, sometimes they're speaking faster than their brain. That's what happened on me. So I think the not a good thing about that is I also got this point from one of the personal testing from Korn and Ferry, because when I promoted to a director, the company giving me a Korn and Ferry testing simulation to test my personality and give me advice. And I think that part, people will feel intimidating, because when you feel an idea, if they cannot follow, they will feel intimidating. That's the challenge. So they even though they understand what you say and probably what you say is correct, but at that point, if they don't have that space to receive your idea, and rather than intimidated by you, so I think sometimes you need to hold back or let the people know, even you express your idea. What I tell my team is, I express my idea because my personality, I cannot hold it too much. But you don't need to take every idea I say. I know as a leader, you need to be careful about what you say to the team, right? Because they say, okay, that's what the boss say, right? But however, I tell my team, my personality, I'm creative, I give ideas. So if you find that I tell too fast or too many ideas, you just take whatever works for you and tell me which one you take. I don't mind you don't take my idea, because that's the way I am. And if anyone who like Friends, the TV program, there's one thing that I forgot, is it Rachel or who say, I hate Ross, always right. So don't be that Ross.
Okay, I like that answer a lot. I think giving people a chance to process and deliver their own value sometimes is better than if you provide the answer for them too fast.
Yes.
Let them get there on their own. Then when they've thought of it, they've processed it completely, and you're not Ross also.
Sorry, Ross. I like Ross, so but just
yeah, we all like Ross, but still. Okay. So here's an interesting question. What technical skills do you wish you had had before going into a new job?
Oh, I really wish I have the brain of the president of that company. So because that is usually when I ask a question in the interview, if I'm interviewing for a new job, because I know to be realistic, not to be too less optimistic. If a new job opening, it's usually be a challenge, especially if it's a replacement job, right? I don't know whether people have this feeling as well, but usually company replace someone because there's a challenge. So I would usually in the interview ask the interviewer, say, what kind of challenge you really have and really want me to solve. And so that I have that in my mind? And that's usually the question that the interview asks me. How do you see any challenge when you interview? Just like Dr. Mendes, you asked me, but I asked the same question back. I say, what kind of challenge you have right now as a leader? You want me to come in and help you to solve? Or if not my position to solve, you can still tell me. And what's the top 3 things that keeps you at night? So I would try to see whether I can really, my skill set, no matter now or future, can really help him or her as my manager. So I think those are the things that I hope that the skill set I want to have may not answer the question directly. That's why I say I really want to have my brain of my new jobs manager.
Thank you. All right, thanks. So we have a question about an MBA providing a framework to help you understand business. And the question is, how do you use this type of framework across multiple different cultural borders?
Okay, great. So just to give you an example about how I practice this framework. I don't know whether, I think Professor Kay Maggie, she's already retired, right? As I know. She's my professor in the marketing courses. And one thing I always remember when I talk to the executive level to think about a strategy is there's 3 ways of excel in the industry: product innovation, operation excellence, and customer intimacy. So those are that framework I use quite a lot. I remember the scenario I use is our president from diabetes in Medtronic, actually the global president, come and visit China, and we have kind of career talks. And he asked me, Maxine, what do you think about the business in China? And how do you think that we can grow the business, right? This is a really typical question. And I say, how can I answer that? It's really, because it's for my career development, right? I need to look smart or feel smart. So I throw out this framework and I turn, okay, I can analyze diabetes, have a really good at customer intimacy because we work really close with patient. The patient use our insulin pump for 24 hours a day. So I think that part really excel and people and our patient respect that. However, our operation excellency need to be improved. And we do have product leadership, product leadership part. However, it's not fast enough. So I use that framework to build the conversation I have with the president of diabetes from Medtronic. So I think those frameworks serve me well. So, and also as you can see through my presentation, I think for me, I have a lot of experience, but still I don't have, how can I say, a little bit kind of book smart to support my experience. So I use a lot of article and reading a lot of business schools article to support my experience, to help people understand, for example, like the cultural cluster, the group study, and also the Harvard Business Review, One Laugh at a Time. I think it's simple, but if you can find an article to, how can I say, support your knowledge, you feel more confident and you will feel more confident to share with others your experience.
I think that another unusual response that adds enormous value. Thank you. I love that.
You're welcome.
I'm going to have to watch this video again and extract all these points. All right, so it's time for us to wrap up, and I'll just ask you one last question, because we've had this question from multiple people now, and I know you don't have a crystal ball, but the questions have to do with what is changing, how are things changing, how's the environment changing? Maybe the question that we should really be asking you is, what skills, what evolving skills that are maybe new, and what about the new environment should people be aware of?
I think for the new environment, there's several thoughts I have recently. I think for the country of, in China, we have all saying that if you want economic and business, the transportation and open the road is really important. So I know that in the US, they are going to open the border on November, I remember. So I think even with the new normal or pandemic, the country will start to open their border, and so that the economy can back to normal. However, this with a condition about the health, right? So I think as everybody, no matter you're a leader or students or just work at home mom, no matter in what situation you are, just really be careful about the health, because I think the health issue have wearing a mask, be a little bit cautious about that. And also another thing is really taking care about yourself and your family, because I always think that is a really good condition. Everyone need to build a supporting system around you to support yourself. Because you may encounter happy time or downtime, right? We call it a day in the blue, right? It's important you have this supporting system, which you need to work on that pretty much every day, especially in this new area of pandemic. And the last one I want to share is, I don't know whether the same in the US or other somewhere else around the world, especially Europe, which usually slower pace. In China, we are extremely fast, extremely, even faster than before. So one example is, if a strategy we call, like we can say, the president think about 5-year strategy, the marketing think about 3-year strategy, the sales team think about a year strategy as a director level. Now, no, the president think about, I would say 2-year strategy, marketing think about a year strategy, sales change the strategy every quarter, because the pace is so fast. So I think those are 3 things, especially happen around me, that I think really taking care about yourself. Remember, the road is open, so prepare to go global again, and then building your support system, treat you well to yourself and your family or whoever support you around you, so that when you are happy, you have someone to share. When you're in downtime, you have someone to cry on. And then the last one is the pace. Even though the external world is really fast, just pace yourself and pace that with whatever situation you are. I think you are in a good hand.
Well, that's a lovely way to end, actually. And thank you so much. I feel like we've gotten insights that were unusual, useful lists, useful frameworks, words to live by, and quite a number of helpful points that I haven't ever heard anyone else mention before. So I want to thank you for adding so much value in this presentation. And on behalf of the Center for Global Business, I want to again express my appreciation for your joining us. And I hope that you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. I think Dr. Mendes, you can also pull out my last slide. So what I like the most from UT Austin. I tell everyone on this part as well, what starts here change the world, and it starts with you. So enjoy and good luck. Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll go back to your last slide.
Yes, which I like a lot. I like this one. Yes. Thank you, everybody who is joining us for today. And thank you, Dr. Mendes, for the invitation and for the moderation.
Thank you so very much.
Okay.
Good morning to you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good day.